Okay, so today I'll be talking on how the internet actually works. To most persons, when they make mention of the internet, the first thing that comes to your mind is I have data plan, I have internet connection, let me browse. But do you actually know how the internet works? So before we go deep into web development, it is actually very important for you to know how the internet actually works. If you go to a website, for instance, and you request for anything at all, let's say you go to google.com and you search for the picture of a dog or the picture of anything, how do you think those pictures are being sent back to you? So today I'll be discussing about that. I'll start with a basic illustration. So the internet is actually a network of computers. So when I say computer, your desktop, your laptop, your mobile device, your mobile phone, your iPad, anything at all you use in accessing the internet. So the internet is like a network of computers. So let me just do a basic analogy here. So let's assume this is a line here, and let's say, let me just pardon my drawing, but just understand what I'm trying to do. So this is one laptop connected to the internet. Then this is another one here. So this is your monitor. So pardon my drawing, guys, but just understand what I'm trying to do. Let's see, we have another one here. Okay, let me extend this line. And we have something that looks like this. Sorry. I will explain what everything means here, but just pardon my drawing. Then let's say we have another device here, another laptop here. Okay, so I'll just, all right. So the internet is a network of computers. When I mean network, I mean connection of computers. So sometimes you ask, say for instance, you are trying to log into your Facebook account. You go to, either you are using the Facebook mobile app, or you have you are using your web browser like Opera Mini, Google Chrome, Firefox, and the likes, and you type facebook.com and you hit enter, and automatically it serves you the facebook.com page, and you log in and you see your friend, you see your news feed, your post, and the likes. So I'll explain the analogy how everything works. So let's say this is computer A, then this B, then this C, and we have D here. You understand? And let's say just imagine this is one particular person, this A here, and this B, this C, and this D. And let me call this E. This E is also a type of computer, but in this case, it is known as a server, or sometimes some people call it web server. So I'll call it server, SERVER. So this is how it actually works. Let's say this is Google server, or let me just use Jumia.com. Let me just say this is Jumia.com.ng server. That is, you guys know what Jumia is, an e-commerce platform. So let's say computer C here, which is Mr. C here, is trying to access Jumia.com. You understand? So what will happen is that computer C here is going to send what we know as an HTTP request. So just follow this arrow. So it's going to send a request to who? Your internet service provider. So your internet service provider, let me just call this ISP. So I'll designate the internet service provider with ISP. So ISP here, your internet service provider, and examples of internet service provider like MTN, Glo, Etisalat, any network at all you are using, the Smile or the SpectraNet. So this device here is currently connected to the internet, but in this case, you are trying to access jumia.com.ng website. So Computer C here will send a request to your internet service provider. And your internet service provider, it's like a company that gives you internet services, which includes data, voice calls. So if you want to make call, you have to load airtime. They also give you the ability to browse the internet. So that's what you are paying for. So let's assume in this case, this is MTN. So let me call this MTN. In this case, this is MTN. So for you to access jumia.com.ng, the computer or your device or your laptop, any device you are using, first of all, it will send a request to your internet service provider. Then your internet service provider is going to do something, and your internet service provider is going to check what we know as a DNS server, your domain name system server. So I'll call this DNS. So I'll call this DNS. This is your domain name server. Some people call it domain name server. Some people call it domain name system server. But whichever one they are talking about, you are on track. Just know that. Okay. So what is a domain name server? So let me just draw something here now. I'll call this what will I use for this now? So let me just do something here. Let me say, okay, let's say this is okay, we are using jumia.com.ng, this example, this Jumia website. So I just want you guys to understand what we are doing so that when you kick off, you actually know what you are doing and you actually know how the internet works. So let me say this is Jumia. Let me just make this a little bit big. So let me say this is Jumia, and there's what we call an IP address. I'm just assuming any IP address, but I'll explain what an IP address means. So let me say this is 129.30.40. Coming, guys. So this is the first one. Let me say then this Facebook. And let me give it another IP address. I'm just assuming any random IP address. So in this case now, so what we'll do, let me just take this here so that I will not clog the entire screen. So this your domain name server is like, see it as your phone book. Each and every one of us here, you have phone numbers on your contact list. So assume your domain name server is your contact list. So each of your contact lists, when you want to save somebody's number, you have the person, you save the person's name and you save the person's phone number. So in this case, let's assume Jumia is the name, then the phone number in this case is the IP address. For this case, facebook.com, this is the IP address. I'm just assuming any IP address, but you could look up the IP address of Jumia or Facebook if they are publicly available. But just understand the illustration I'm trying to make. So Computer C here is trying to access Jumia website, but first of all, it has to send a request to your internet service provider. So your internet service provider, in this case, you have to have data plan for you to access the internet. So your internet service provider is going to send a request to a domain name server. A domain name server is like a phone book. It has all the websites or any website you are trying to access. It has their IP address. So how will your device know that, okay, jumia.com.ng, this is the IP address? First of all, the internet service provider has to look it up on your domain name server. So your domain name server is the phone book that has all the IP address and all the URL, the IP address of all the websites you are trying to access. So in this case now, let's assume jumia.com.ng, the IP address is 129.39.40. So what will happen in this case now, your domain name server is going to return back 129.39.40 back to the client, which in this case is you. It's going to return it back to you. So this same thing can happen to A, B. I'm just using C in this instance now. So let's say, okay, domain name server, after looking up the IP address on the domain name server, is going to tell this particular device, this laptop, that, okay, the domain name server now, it's what? So the domain name server, it's 129.39.40. So the domain name server is going to check its log, its database of all the websites and the IP address. In this case, what we are looking for is jumia.com.ng, and it will return it back to the client 129.39.49, which is this device. So the device in this case now will now send a request directly to jumia.com. So after having the IP address of Jumia.com, so C now in this case will now send the request to this server. You understand? So when I say the internet is a connection of computer, it means it's a network of computers, and computers, they have different functions. In this instance now, you are accessing this Zoom meeting with your laptop or your phone. I don't know which of them you are using, but there are some, you agree with me that your laptop cannot be on 247. The laptop does not go on 247. Maybe when you are sleeping or you are not trying to do any work, you put off your laptop. But there are special kind of computer known as server. A server is also a computer, but it's a special kind of computer that perform a particular purpose. So these servers, they run almost 247. Theoretically, they run 24/7, like they never shut down. That's why anytime you go to facebook.com or jumia.com or any website of your choice, they are always accessible. They never shut down. You can as well use your phone, or you can as well use your laptop or your desktop as a server, but it is not reliable in the sense that if your internet should go down or they steal your device or your laptop is not on, nobody can access the web pages or the resources you are trying to host out there. You understand? So there are special kind of computers known as servers, and they run 247, and they are responsible for storing all the files you need. Let's say you go to facebook.com, for instance. Now it automatically loads Facebook websites for you. You see the blue background of Facebook, all your friends and stuff like that. So this server right here, right now, it keeps all your files, it keeps record of all your friend lists, it keeps record of everything. And I'll show you guys a picture of a web server. So this is how it looks like in real life. Yes, that's why I just did this, like this little box, so that you just see what it is. A server is also a computer, just that it is a special kind of computer that houses and stores all the files you need to access. So this is a kind of server here, as you can see here. These are servers. Servers comes in different configuration and different types. All these here are servers. I'm just trying to show you guys how they look like in real world. You understand? So they run 247. Though there are some times whereby a server might be down. There are sometimes maybe you want to access. I could recall, I think that was last year when Twitter website, the server was down. You couldn't access Twitter or I think Facebook also, or Instagram. It was down for like more than an hour. In that case, the server was down. It is not accessible, but it doesn't occur every time. It happens once in a while. That's why I said they run 247 theoretically. It doesn't mean they don't have downtime or they don't have maintenance time, just that they can serve almost 247, and no system or no machine is 100% efficient. There are some times whereby your server, it has to go down, or maybe due to different, it can go down due to different reasons, but hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. So let's say, for instance, now, let me go to google.com now. Let me type google.com here, and let's see what will happen. You can see now, what does happen there while I type google.com. First of all, my laptop I'm using to do this Zoom meeting, it went through my internet service provider. In this case, I'm using MTN to host this meeting. And my internet service provider will now check google.com. What is the domain name server for what is the IP address of google.com? And it will tell me, let's say, for instance, it is 129.39.49. Automatically, it will now return it back to my device. And instead of typing google.com, I could have swear instead of typing www.google.com, I could have swear type 129.39.49 on my URL here, and it will take me towards google.com website. All these things happen in milliseconds, like in fractions. You see all these things I'm telling you now, it goes to your internet service provider, it goes to your domain, everything happens in fact, like, I don't know what you guys, if you guys know what you call a jiffy, like I think it's 1/100 of a second or so. So all these things happen very fast. But I'm just trying to tell you guys what happens behind the scene, so that any website you are trying to access, just know that this is what is happening. Your device sends it to your internet service provider, which can be MTN, Glo, Etisalat, any network of your choice, and it goes to the domain name server. And this domain name server is like a phone book of all the websites that exist in the world and their IP address. So it will now search for the website you are trying to access, and it will bring up the IP address of that website, and it will tell your device that, okay, this is the IP address, and it will now send an HTTP request to the server, and the server will now return back an HTTP response back to you. So from the client here, this laptop here, to the server, it sends a request known as HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Then your server will now send back a response to this, your device. It is also send back a response, in this case, HTTP or HTTPS. The S here stands for secure. As you can see now, this web whiteboard, which I'm using to do this illustration, you see this padlock here. Yes, this padlock here. Anytime maybe you are trying to access your website and it requires you to put in sensitive details, or like your credit card details or your any sensitive information, always check that there's this padlock here. This padlock here means it is actually secured. So if, for example, a hacker is trying to spoof your packets, your network packets, or the data you are trying to send to somebody or you are trying to receive, even if they get it, it will look like rubbish, gibberish to them. They can't make any sense out of it. So always make sure that any website you are trying to access, like google.com or anywhere, it has this padlock. Always make sure of it. And this padlock, there's what we call SSL certificate. So this padlock, it's made possible by what we call a secured socket layer certificate. So if your website doesn't have an SSL certificate, it is vulnerable. And if I should, for example, I should spoof your network traffic or your network packet, I can see what you are sending. So if you are sending somebody your account details, or if you have a crypto wallet and you are trying to send somebody your private key, I can actually see everything and I could hack you with that, you understand? But just know that any website you are trying to access, make sure that it has an SSL certificate. And for you to know that there is actually an SSL certificate, you have to check if the padlock is visible on the URL bar, you understand? So let me just recap. The internet here is a network of computers, and there are different kinds of computers. You have your normal clients, your normal computer that you use, or it can be your laptop, your desktop, your iPad, or your mobile phone. And there are also special kind of computers known as a server. A web server is responsible for hosting your files, responsible for providing you information you need anytime you want to access it, and they run almost 24/7. I'm using a computer here. Doesn't mean you can only access the internet with a computer. It also means that I'm just using it to make it, I'm just using the computer to make it easier for you to understand. It could be a mobile phone. Let me just draw a mobile phone and add it. It could be an iPad. It could be a tablet, anything at all you want to use to access the internet. Just know that it is a network. It's a connection, you understand? It's a network of computers, you understand? So I think that's the basic introduction. I just want you guys to have this introduction. You guys should know the basic principle, how the internet actually works, so that when we start doing the actual web development tutorial, you already know anytime you are trying to access a website or anytime you are trying to do anything, you know what is happening behind the scene. And just know that sending a request, it goes to your internet service provider, and your internet service provider, it goes to your domain name server, and from your domain name server, it goes back to you, which by then the domain name server will return the IP address of the website you are trying to access, and it will now send a direct HTTP request to the server, in this case, which is Jumia.com. Then Jumia.com will now send the response back to you, and it will now be rendered on your phone as a web page. You understand? So I think that's just the basic introduction for today's class. So from next class, we'll start the actual coding. I hope you guys understand how the internet works behind the scene. You understand? So I'll unmute you guys so that you can ask me any question you want to. So pardon me for this. Okay, so you can, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask me the question, please. So if you have any question, kindly unmute yourself and ask me the question you want to, so that I could clarify any question. If you have a question, kindly ask me the question so that I could clarify. We have limited time on the using Zoom to host this meeting. So kindly ask me the question that you want to ask me. Come on, don't be shy. So I'll wait for the next 2 minutes. If there's no question, I'll assume you guys properly understood everything I've been explaining. No question?
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity once more.
You're
Please, I want
welcome.
to ask, the domain name server, how can we acquire that?
You said the domain name server, how can you acquire that? Okay, when you start building a website, there's what we call a hosting platform. Let me just give you an, I don't know if you guys have heard of Bluehost. Let me just go to Bluehost. There are different web hosting platform. For instance, these are the ones I use. Let me just open another one here. Localhost. So when you are finished, maybe you want to build a particular website, for instance, and you've built the front end, the back end, and everything, and you want to host your website, that is, you want to make it live. Because if I'm building a website right now, only me can access the website. It's hosted locally on my device. But if I want to make it accessible to everybody, and I need a larger capacity or storage capacity, I will meet one of these hosting companies, and you can see there are some, the plan usually starts from, I think, minimum of $2.75 per month. You could pay for a year, 2 years, or 3 years, whatever the case may be. So when you carry out the required process, like you register, you submit the verification document, and you do all sorts of things, and you could send those files to this hosting platform. As time goes on, after I've taught you guys how to do that, I will also show you guys how to host your website live. But I don't want to go too deep because this is just an introductory class. But just know that after building your website, you send it to this hosting platform, and they'll be responsible for giving you a dedicated IP address. In this case, Bluehost, in this case, they have a web server that serves everybody that is hosting their website with them. You understand? You could as well have your own personal web server, but just know that it is expensive to buy the hardware and everything. You must have the money to do that. But since you don't have the money to buy the hardware, and you're in Nigeria, I assume you're in Nigeria, you don't have the resources like having the network and electricity to power your server 24/7. That's why you're paying these hosting companies, so that they can make your website run almost 24 hours, 7 days a week. You understand? So after building your website, I want to show you guys how to use all these hosting platforms. These are another hosting platform I've used before, but I specifically didn't want to tell you guys about this now because I don't want you to deviate that much. It's not necessary for now. But since you asked, when you want to host your website, you pay to either of all these companies. There are different hosting platforms, but you can make a research on the one you want to use. Then you pay them, and they'll be responsible for giving you the IP address and all the resources you need to host your website, so that anybody that want to access your website, once they type your website name, they will automatically be taken to your website. You understand? So I hope I've answered your question. So am I clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Any other question?
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, sorry, I might have to take you back. I'm grateful once more for this opportunity. But unfortunately, I missed the last class. So I wanted to know what the tool we are going to be using for the coding. Is it Visual Studio? Sorry, VS Code.
See, what you have to do, in my previous class, the last, I think 2 classes we've had so far, everything, all your questions you are asking now, they have been answered. But I use Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. I use any of them. So those 2 are my favorite. But if you need further explanation, are you on the Discord server, the channel?
Yes.
So go to the web development channel, and you see a list of all the videos, all the classes we've had. I upload every video as soon as we finish the classes. So kindly watch them, and you see that you get the explanation and the introduction from day 1 to this current day. So I don't want to start explaining now because it will waste everybody's time, and you might deny some other person that maybe you have questions to ask, and we are working on limited time. So hope I'm clear with that.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Yes, please.
Any other question? Any other question from anybody? Any other question? So I assume we are all clear. So after this class, after the recording, I'm going to send the video. I'm going to upload the video on the Discord server. So do well to watch it. And if you are just starting this your first class, make sure that you watch all previous videos, because the way I am going to do the tutorial, every new tutorial I'm taking is going to build on what you've learned before. So if you skip any part, there might be a gap in your knowledge, you understand? So that will be the end of this class. Have a nice day. See you guys on Friday. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.